Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm with Roger Connect, host. I'm from Universal Accounting Center, and this is a podcast committed to actually helping you have the premier accounting firm in your area, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. Now, as a show, we actually focus each and every week on various things that you need to be working on in your business, ranging from tech stack to marketing, selling, mental health, working with your employees, onboarding clients, and so much more. So join us each and every week as we actually release an episode, hearing from the experts on what it is we can be doing to work on our business. Now, as it relates to today, I'm excited to have someone on the show that I've been looking forward to discussing, because this is going to be kind of a highlight, if I could, of a variety of things. This is Leeroy Beeby. He happens to originally be from South Africa and is the co-founder of Level. It's an error detection software for QuickBooks Online. Now, before relocating to Canada, he earned his chartered accountant qualification at KPMG and worked as a consultant in Bermuda, where he assisted companies in designing and implementing accounting software solutions. After completing his MBA at the University of Toronto, he started and scaled a construction-specific accounting firm to 7 figures in under 18 months. Leeroy is passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and rock climbing. So, Leeroy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here, Roger.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So one of the things that's really exciting for me is not only your experience and background in accounting, but what you've done with Level and so forth. So let me first of all begin with a little bit of context and help my listeners just know a little bit about you. What drew you to accounting? Why become an accountant in the beginning?
Yeah. I guess my parents are very entrepreneurial. I think my parents have owned a range of businesses, schools, psychiatric clinics, construction businesses. And often around the dinner table, money was a big problem. That was always a hot topic. Parents were quite absent as well while I was growing up. And it kind of made me think, like, is there a way I could help my parents or people like my parents with understanding their numbers better? Because that always seemed to be a very touchy sore point growing up. So, trying to help my parents' problems, I pursued a career in accounting.
Well, you're clearly someone that was exposed to entrepreneurship very early on, because after getting established in accounting, going the KPMG route, you started your own business and obviously chose to niche down into construction. You grew a thriving business. So let's just talk for a moment about that. What was it like to start that accounting business?
Yeah, I mean, it started off small, right? I mean, initially, one of the things that struck me was when I finished my MBA, I was really struck with an option of okay, well, what am I going to do, right? Like, I could go back into the big corporate world, work as a consultant or banking, but I felt I'd done that already because I qualified as a chartered accountant from KPMG. The other thing was going back to South Africa. I did consider that, going to help my parents with their businesses, and I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'm the only family member in Canada, so it's that comes with its own challenges, especially because I'm quite close with my family. One of the things I seriously did consider was going back to South Africa. And in that thought process, I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to go into a big corporate job again. I don't want to, I'm seriously considering going back to South Africa to help my family out. What would be worth it to, give up that time that I could be spending with my family? And starting a business is what sort of came to mind. And the economy in Canada is very different from South Africa, especially coming out of the MBA. I mean, the MBA sort of brainwashes you to try start your own business. This is one thing I've noticed, at least in Canada. There's a lot more self-starters here than, say, what you would find in South Africa. I think a lot of people strive to start their own businesses here. I'm not sure if it's just a cultural thing or maybe it's just my university that was like that. I was just like, okay, well, let's try this. Sort of researched what opportunities there were. And, at one point, Toronto had the most cranes in the in North America or in the world at one point. So there was a lot of construction going on. But I came across the statistic saying 9 out of 10 of these construction businesses fail within, I think it was 5 or 10 years. And I was just I found that statistic really shocking, because I was just okay, well, what's causing this? And I doing some research, speaking to constructions, also speaking to my dad. One of the things that really came across as an issue was around job costing, knowing how much profit you're making on a specific job. And then, looking at my experience in designing financial controls, being in audits and those sort of things, it's okay, well, there seems to be an opportunity here to, niche in construction and providing specifically job costing services. And yeah, just started with that, got a few clients, was fortunate enough to sort of partner with a coaching program, which ultimately led to the explosive growth that we had. And I mean, this was during COVID too. So, we started the business in 2019. Construction was one of the industries that were like really exploded during COVID because everyone was like, okay, I need to renovate my house to be able to work from home. So a lot of contractors just saw some serious growth during that time. And we were there to try to support them and make sure that they were pricing their jobs correctly.
So with that success that you had starting your business, which by the way, I want to give credit where it's due. I mean, you're first generation, you're not in the country of origin, and you chose with that entrepreneur spirit to start a business. I think that's quite risky, and I applaud you for that. But what would you attribute the success over the 12, 18 months that you had with your firm, getting it to 7 figures to? What was that thing that you felt helped you have that catalyst?
Yeah, I mean, I think niching was really important. Understanding like, hey, we were solving a very specific problem at that time, and we could sell that quite easily to contractors. In addition, I had a really good team. I made some good hires, but also, as I'm sure we'll discuss, some of the things I learned were like I made some bad hires. I think those were something I really learned through the process. And I mean, I will say there's an element of luck, right? Like the fact that we landed that partnership with the coaching program, and that was done through just some outreach and Instagram. Someone reached out to us and liked what we were doing and set up an introduction to the coaching program, and we continued to work from there. That I would say, like, there was a luck component to it, but on top of that, there was a lot of hard work, a lot of hours. I will say that that growth period was probably one of the most stressful times in my life. Like, it's not for everyone. But I would say that luck, hard work, and just timing were really helpful in
Perfect. Well, before we transition into the next thing, what I'd like to do is dive a little bit deeper into what you were sharing a moment ago regarding the good hires, the staffing, the thing you learned as it related to getting the right people in the right seat on the bus. What is it that you learned as you went through the School of Hard Knocks related to hiring people and finding that some were not a good fit? What was your takeaway from that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I would always try to hire slow in hindsight. I think, I think one of my best hires came out of like an accident. So like, so I started. I wish I had done this earlier, but I started giving tests or case studies to go home, take homes for any possible candidates. And one of the things that happened was in one of the questions, I actually made a mistake. Like the way I structured the question wasn't correct. And a lot of candidates actually just ended up answering the question, as opposed to one of the candidates actually came back to me and said, "Hey, look, there's a mistake here. Are you sure this is the right way to do it?" And I was like, "Whoa, okay." Like she pointed out it was a mistake. Ended up hiring her, but it just pointed to like, can someone question what they're doing? That was one of our best managers that we hired. So I think one of the takeaways is always do a test or quality control. I would also hire slow and fire fast. It's a normal saying. And just really try to set up a process to like for success, for setting them up for success. I think the hardest thing for me was the hiring and finding the talent. There is a shortage of accountants, but there's a shortage of even like good accountants, like people that will take responsibility of the work, especially in a fully remote environment, right? Like we were fully remote environments, and that doesn't necessarily fit with everyone. But yeah, I would say like one of the biggest takeaways for me from hiring is just make sure that you incorporate some element of a case study in the in your hiring process. And get your team to actually speak to them too. So we typically had like a 3 interview process. I would interview them, that have a case study, run through the case study, then I'd introduce them to team members to see if they were a fit with anything, any red flags came up, and then there would be a 3-month probationary period. And just grew it that way.
I like that we've talked about this because, like you, I've struggled with my hires. I've gotten better and better over the years. At one point in my career, was a recruiter, so it wasn't foreign to me. But the point is everybody puts forth their best foot forward as it relates to the interview. Everybody wants to, just like a date, they want to sound like they're the best person in the world. And so they're going to claim that they have the skills and the abilities and the experience that you're looking for. And so it's really kind of weeding through that and finding that cultural fit. Yeah, they might have the skills, but will they actually work well within the organization as we have peers that we're interacting with? And then you've got to look at it if they're client facing, what would that person be like as they represent the company for our client before our clients? So these are things to consider. And I like that you pointed out that you have a 3-stage process, a 3-interview process that really hopefully weeds out the people along the way. And more importantly, helps you become more confident with the ones that you're ultimately going to offer a position to. So that was good. Get your copy of Red to Black. It is the book written for accounting professionals to help businesses turn around and go from being in the red to being in the black. This book is written for consultants, business owners, operators, and managers. No matter what your client's product or service, or irrespective of your talent, skill, or expertise, as an accounting professional, you'll be able to use the principles presented in this book to actually become, for your clients, the profit and growth expert. Every chapter is filled with principles and concepts that you can use immediately with your clients to lead them from being in the red to being more profitable in their business, and see you as, in fact, their guide, their coach, with the expertise and wisdom that you can bring from this book. In the book, you have how-to guide explanations. You have models that you can follow. You're shown how to actually calculate and determine the fees for your services, the actual model that you'll use during the implementation of all this, and most importantly, the end-all results with your clients. Get this book now and see what it is you can do to offer this new revenue-producing service as, in fact, the profit and growth expert. For more information on how you can take advantage of this offer, go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. Here's what I'd like to do. You had this successful, or have this successful accounting business, and you clearly saw an opportunity as it relates to now QuickBooks and helping individuals as it relates to helping them run their business a little bit better. And you started a tech business. How did you go from accounting into tech? And give us a little bit of a backstory as to what caused you to go about starting Level Copilot.
No, great question. So during my MBA, I mean, Toronto is, at that time at least, was very, there was a lot of money flowing into technology, a lot of startups. And again, the MBA program, there's incubators there, and they really try to get you involved in that environment. So I made quite a few connections that way, and ended up finding my co-founder for the tech business that way. And, to be honest, like where the idea came from was I was running a fully remote business. We were growing rapidly, and I'd made some bad hires. And some of the things that really struck me were around like clients notifying me of issues before I could identify them. And that just pointed to an issue around, our processes. And I only had so many hours in the day, right? And I felt like, okay, well, is there a way for me to sort of see these issues before they get to the clients? And then on top of that, it was really important for me to find something easy to implement. Because I did look at some solutions in the market, and I was just like, okay, well, if I was going to implement any of these, I would need to hire someone just to manage that piece of software within the organization. I wanted a quick win. And I couldn't really find anything. And really the things I wanted to know was the work being completed, and was the work being completed accurately, right? To a certain threshold. It didn't need to be perfect, but at least to some degree, were we proactively identifying issues, and could I proactively determine the progress of a file, within a very short time frame, as opposed to manually relying on it or clicking on every individual file to see the process, or on top of that, also worst case scenario, my client saying, there's an issue. So I looked in the market, couldn't really find anything. And that's sort of where the idea came from, was that I was like, okay, well, I just want something to review the work in essence when it was being completed. Because I felt like the month-end process was particularly stressful, because that was the point in time when all the work had to be completed, all the work had to be reviewed, and then the financial package was prepared and shared. And quite often, sometimes, we would make hires and they would repeat errors. And now, you're spending more time fixing that, creates more delays on packages, more time is being spent on that file, and other files are losing, again, so people are working overtime. It's not a great environment. So that's where the idea for Level came was, okay, hey, let's try give feedback as work's being completed and highlight progress on these files so that, you don't have to find the mistakes, in month end, essentially.
Yeah, well, as with everything, that pain, that problem, that void was the mother of invention. Obviously, you saw a need and you felt that it's something that you, with your skills and connections, could ultimately resolve. And clearly, it is a problem. It's something that I think a lot of bookkeepers can relate to. So you create Level Copilot. I'm curious now how you feel AI and automation has changed the role of bookkeepers, and where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years, considering your services and what we're doing to try and simplify the processes?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I mean, AI is changing every few months. So what I say now could be quite could change or not be, or could be obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at the core of anything when it comes to AI, there needs to be some audit component to it. You need to make sure that there needs to be some human component of making sure that the AI is doing what it's supposed to be doing and not autonomously making errors, because that could scale quite large, right? So when I think about our product, I think about, okay, well, how can we make sure that we're we want to be the auditors of AI in some rule-based way, because essentially, AI is non-deterministic. You give it the same input and it would give you the different output every single time. Whereas accounting and bookkeeping is very rule-based. To some degree, you do want something that's rule-based, checking your AI to make sure that it is following the compliance required within the accounting industry. So, I mean, that's where we really want to sort of specialize. And then on top of that, again, there is still going to be a human component to this, right? A large part of what we also see as an opportunity in the market is like, how do you, one of the things that I really struggled with when I was running my business too was, okay, employee performance. What are the metrics that you measure employee performance on, right? So we do want to incorporate elements of employee performance in our product. Okay, well, how many transactions are being posted? How many errors are coming up? That could also scale to like AI performance, like how accurate is your AI working to? So those are some of the things we're at least thinking about as it relates to AI.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you also agree that the human component is still going to be a valuable part of the process, that AI, the technology, these are tools that we're using as accounting professionals to do our job more efficiently. And so I think these are value adds to our abilities. It's enhancing what we're able to accomplish, but it doesn't replace us, not as of yet. It might replace various roles or functions, but it's definitely not going to replace the profession. As it relates to Level Copilot, I am curious, what's the difference between other error detection type controls or softwares and what it is that QuickBooks Online is not doing that Level Copilot is doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, at our core, as I mentioned, I said earlier, one of the things we really want to focus on is identifying those errors when they happen, as opposed to, the traditional workflow is like, let's look at this at month end and find those mistakes. There are cons to that, especially when it comes to onboarding new team members. Okay, well, you're giving them feedback way later than they need it. Also, one of the things we've also noticed is sometimes clients might do their own bookkeeping. So having a tool giving them feedback on them doing their books is really, really, really valuable. One of the challenges with, I think, that QuickBooks and these softwares that do the bookkeeping for you, or these general ledger softwares, is they're great tools, but they also try to be user friendly. So there's this fine line of like, okay, well, accuracy versus user friendly. Hey, we'll post these transactions for you because they look very similar to old transactions, and then you end up posting them incorrectly. Those softwares aren't perfect. So you do want something reviewing the bookkeeping software to make sure that they're accurate, and then providing you feedback on like, okay, hey, these are where the errors are happening, right? I mean, the common mistakes we hear from our clients are things like, QuickBooks not matching bank deposits, especially if you use something like the undeposited funds account, matching those payments to bank deposits typically isn't done correctly, and a bookkeeper might post that deposit to sales, and that now duplicates sales, duplicates or increases net income, increases taxes, and those sort of things. And that's just one of the many mistakes that could happen, right? So just having something support you in identifying those can really help onboarding and ensuring that the books are accurate and clean.
I like that. Now, one of the things that I think many accounting firms will ask is, yes, they get exposed to all this technology. There's a lot of bells and whistles out there. How do they know that this technology or any technology is the right thing to implement? What is that thing that helps them realize, is this the right time for me to consider investing in a software, a technology, a tool to actually take what I'm currently doing and enhancing it? Because I think a lot of times they're just curious, timing, is it the right time? And how to identify, of all the different things out there, what's next? So it's kind of a 2-question thing. But the third thing I'd like to just throw in there is, obviously, this is a question of, is it client facing? Is this something that the client's going to get exposed to or interact with? Or is it internal in the sense that this is something that we're going to use within the firm to literally help with our efficiencies and accuracies, but the client's never going to see or interact with it? So really kind of 3 things there. How would you answer those questions?
Yeah. So level, as those questions relate to level, I mean, one, we thought about this, and one of the big things I think is giving a free trial. So looking for products that don't have a large commitment and using them is quite important. And then understanding our product is quite simple. It's a read-only. It doesn't have client-facing and internal-facing components to it. So understanding the training that's going to be required to bring your team on, both from a client perspective, because clients also probably need training, is really important to gauge. So I think one of the things is identifying a problem, trying to find those solutions that address those problems through software, and then understanding the scope of implementing those pieces of software. I also find that a lot of people try to find one piece of software that solves all the problems. That doesn't exist. You try to find 4 pieces of software that solve 80% of the problems. And then obviously aim for the problems that are really important to getting solved is important to think about. And then team buy-in is also important. Like, having a team leading the implementation of the tools is really important. So even, what we found is, a lot of our clients would first give the software to the managers to figure out themselves, to see like, okay, what would be the workload in implementing these tools. And our tool is quite easy. It's just a read-only product that gives you feedback, no client-facing, as I mentioned, and we have a free trial. So those are some of the ways you can get around. And if you can get a demo, we do offer demos on our website too. Definitely dive into a demo and try and find out what support you can get in onboarding the tools. What support do the software companies offer in helping you onboard the software that they're offering?
Oh, that's some great insights. And I actually have to agree. And in fact, I'm going to complement what you just shared with a few other things that I've learned over the years. First of all, it's great to actually kind of divorce yourself of all those bells and whistles out there and just basically look internally. What are we doing right now? And what could we actually work and do more efficiently if we had an additional tool? Take, for example, a carpenter. If they're actually using a hammer and nail to build their carpentry, that's great. But if they got an air compressor and a nail gun, they might be able to work more efficiently. Well, that's a task I'm doing right now that if I use this new tool, this intense tool will actually help me do this more efficiently, quicker, and allow me to actually do more in production. Well, it's the same thing in accounting. Internally, what we're looking for is what can we do to actually help us eliminate errors, for example, as you're pointing out, that redundancy of work that's going on, the need to actually review things so often simply because of the errors that continue to pop up. But at the same time, we're looking at what are we already doing that we could systemize or implement some processes around. And if there's a technology or tool that will help that workflow, that's phenomenal. So the second question is whether or not it's going to involve our clients. Is it client facing in the sense that by implementing it, are we going to have to now require them or need them to somehow get involved? And if that is, that's a big ask, because now you're requiring your client to do something that they didn't realize that they needed to. They weren't planning on it. It's something new that they may not really want to adopt or do. And so you're dependent upon their engagement with it. Well, you have to assess, is that something that we really want to go all in on and require them to participate in? And then the third thing that I think is very important is, like you were indicating, it's the support of that platform. It's the ease of testing it, implementing it, and going all in on it. I think too often what we're doing is we're adopting within our firms various platforms and tools and resources, but we're not going all in. We're not getting trained. So we're not fully adopting or onboarding through that process. We're not fully going in and utilizing all the tools and technologies that exist within that platform that are readily available in the sense that we're already paying for them. We're just basically off the surface, taking something, rolling it out, and within a few weeks, feeling like we're trained enough to utilize it as we hope, go all in and get deep and involved with, simply because of the fact that a lot of those bells and whistles could actually resolve some other issues that you may be facing as well. So those are just my additional thoughts on that. I'm curious, what surprises you as bookkeepers and accountants take what your tool is and implement it? What some of the things have been a surprise to you as they've actually begun using it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest surprises was actually like how it's affected some of the culture within some of the firms. I think one of the hardest things I think a manager has, and as a bookkeeper actually has too, is knowing when to ask a question. Quite often, bookkeepers might just go in there, do the work, or can be quite scared to like ask a question on like whether this is right or wrong. And what we found quite interesting is, the reports that our product creates, a lot of the managers will sit down with the bookkeepers and run through those. So what ends up happening is level is the icebreaker for the questions to be asked on like, okay, well, what's the correct process for this? And that just streamlines training a lot more, and also just creates a more open culture within the organizations on like, okay, what questions to ask and when. That was a really big surprise. And then the other one is just the large increase in quality service quality around clients, where, for example, a client might go in there, do something, and then like messaged a week or two later and say, okay, well, I think I made a mistake. This is what happened. And a bookkeeping firm will say, oh no, we saw that already. Well, it's already addressed. And then they're like, oh, wow, like, that's great. Like, you took care of that before, it sort of like snowballed and became a larger issue. So those are some of the examples, but the culture one was quite an interesting. Had a few clients that came up with us and said like, this has really helped improve communication within our team.
That is a surprise. I appreciate you pointing that out. That wasn't what I was expecting to hear. So thank you for mentioning it. Learn the turnkey process for starting and building a successful accounting business. It's in this course, so you'll actually experience 4 specific trainings. Part 1, your business plan, everything you need to know to get started. Part 2, how to price your services, the pros and cons of different methods, and the best way to price your services that are both profitable and professional. Marketing and selling your services so that you can actually be top of mind, but more importantly, how to actually be seen as a trusted strategic advisor. And last of all, mapping it all out. 5 principles in running a profitable business so that you can be both competent and confident in the services you're providing. Learn now what it is you can be doing to start and build your own successful accounting, bookkeeping, or tax business. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. So I'm curious, having run a successful accounting firm, running a successful software company, what's the difference between the two? Could you say one is different in any particular way? Is there something that it takes different skills or maybe different expertises from you in order to have the 2 successful businesses?
Yeah, I would say they are quite different because one's a productized business and one's a service-based business. I think, when it came to the accounting business, since I'm an accountant and that's like, my trade, it was a lot easier, I was able to pull on my experiences a lot easier in building and scaling that business. But when it came to the technology side, I really needed to find a co-founder that could, I could rely on and knew the technology really well. So, it wasn't really so much that I could depend on myself in it. I really had to work with someone, and I found a great co-founder, Riley. That was a big lesson. And the challenge is slightly different because, accounting is compliance oriented. You have to get it done. Whereas, the sales approach and like solving the problems a lot harder in a product-based business because, there are multitudes of products on the market. What's special? How are you different? And that was one of the hard things, was just trying to figure out or like share with our users the problem that we're solving so much so that they'd buy into it. It really helped that, I ran an accounting firm, they could trust me from that way. But that was quite a different challenge. I would say those were the primary differences.
Good. Now, you mentioned that this is actually an integration to QuickBooks Online, QBO. I'm curious, QBO has its evolutions, its changes, it's constantly changing. There are things that are out of your control that they're implementing and doing as they enhance their software platform. I'm curious, how has that impacted your business and what kind of frustrations has that caused?
Yeah, thankfully nothing too intense. I mean, they have just rolled out the partnership program, which now, if you do have an API into their software, you have to pay for that. I'm hoping that just leads to more support in that API, because there are certain things that aren't accessible. For example, QBO doesn't make the audit logs accessible through their API, which can be a little frustrating because there's a lot of good information in there that you could garner. It will be really interesting to see it, like how the AI comes into play. We've heard quite a few complaints around the AI sort of hallucinating and creating transactions that shouldn't be happening. Whether that's going to get better, we'll see. But at the same time, the whole audit industry is based on, third parties, independent parties reviewing a company. Sure, they can have their own internal audit, but at the end of the day, you need a third party independent of the organization to audit those books to ensure that they're accurate. So if QBO ever did come up with an audit program, there will be some conflict of interest around there, because it's going to be like, okay, do we really tell the end user how bad their books are based on our software, or do we have someone else highlight that issue for us? Because you're going to be in quite a sticky situation if there are issues that your software is creating, and then you have to actually admit to those.
Yeah, that is interesting. So what's one thing that bookkeeping firms could actually do today to improve their margins without hiring staff? We brought up staff earlier. We're talking about obviously eliminating errors and streamlining the process. What's something that a bookkeeping firm could actually do today to really improve their margins and ultimately make more money?
Yeah, I think one of the other lessons I learned in running an organization that was really important was knowing your customer and not saying yes to everything. Really nailing down on your scope of services and sticking to that can really help improve your margins, and then letting go of the bad clients. I mean, you hear this often, but quite often, but I think that is incredibly important. And don't be shy to increase your prices, especially if you are providing a good, valuable service. Your good clients will stick with you. So yeah, that's kind of the things I would definitely look at is what are the good clients? Let's replicate those and try to get rid of those bad clients, because you can quickly increase your margins that way if you do double down on it.
I like that. And I appreciate you bringing up being able to say no. Boundaries are good. I think too oftentimes we're trying to be too much of a pleaser as it relates to our clients. And oftentimes we're not paid for those services or that accessibility. So that was something that I did hear you say. As it relates to you, you've got a great track record with business. You've obviously started now an accounting firm, a software company. What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for my health, even though recently I've had a little bit of a shoulder issue. Tore my AC, which is not great. But I'm still, I can still work. My health is really important. And just the family that supported me. I'm really grateful for those things.
And how has that support from your family made a difference?
Well, my parents gave me a lot of opportunity growing up. And my mom is a clinical psychologist, so when things, which is a double-edged sword sometimes, but she if things get tough, I do give her a call, and my partner's also really, really helpful, especially now with my limited mobility. And yeah, I'm just really grateful. I mean, I think health is like one of the most important things, and especially mental health. Just being able to understand that everything's going to be okay, even things might be rough, but at the end of the day, if you can always have that outlook of like everything's going to be okay, everything's going to work out, and be confident in that can really, really help you try new things, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned something that I think is important. I'm going to end on this. The next 5 years in accounting, what's going to change? What do you see on the horizon? What are you excited about? And you've got the perspective of both being an accounting firm offering compliance work, being a software company that's trying to remain cutting edge as it relates to the services you're offering to the accounting profession. What's on the horizon?
Yeah. What's on the horizon? I'm not quite sure yet, to be honest. I'm going to keep working on the company, seeing how that goes. And in personal life, I'm hoping to have kids one day. So there's that component. Starting a family would be really important. Yeah, and that's about it. That's a big question. I try to take things day by day, step by step. And right now, I think it's just important for me to just kind of keep a lookout on what's happening in the industry. There's so much changing, and I'm just trying to keep my ear to the ground and see what's next and where to take this.
Are you excited about the future?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's very, very exciting.
I like your optimism. That's good. Yeah. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start wrapping this up. And as I do so, one of the things I want to point out is I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But before I go too much further, I do want to share with my listeners that Leeroy has been very kind to actually offer us a discount. Basically, you can go to the episode description. There you'll find information regarding Level Copilot, and at the same time, a 25% discount on your subscription. And so what I want you to do is go check that out, learn more about Level Copilot and what it is that it can do for your firm as it relates to eliminating errors. And the big thing here is give it a try, give it a test. And with that, see what you can actually do to improve the efficiency of your firm. In addition to that, I want to encourage you to check out the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. This is a challenge that we've put together to actually assist you to work on your business. It's addressing issues on your personal level as well as your professional level. It's really helping you work on those two key things that help you as a leader and, more importantly, as a business owner. So check out the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. Take it. It's a 90-day challenge to assist you over the coming weeks to focus on essentially those key elements that make up a successful business offering quality services and helping you get paid what you're worth. So go to the episode description now and subscribe, sign up for, and participate in the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. The other thing I want to do is invite you to GrowCon. Definitely sign up and register now for that event. It's a conference where we actually get together as owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. You want to register, you want to attend. It's each and every May. Look forward to seeing you there. Now, as it relates to a summary of our conversation today, one of the things that I'd like to highlight is clearly Leeroy had exposure to entrepreneurship early on. It's something that was part of his family. He sat around the kitchen table and heard those conversations. And he was obviously motivated by the constant conversation about finance and monies and the strains that existed there to say that was a good profession to go into to perhaps help him and other business owners. And he did exactly that. Having gone into the profession, he not only worked in accounting, but lived in Bermuda, ended up in Canada, got his master's degree, and with that entrepreneurial spirit, chose of all things to do, start a business. And he started a very successful accounting business. And one of the things that I thought was very helpful there is he indicated that one of his key components to success was niching his services, focusing on what is it that the construction industry needed and what was that key deliverable that he could offer. And so with that, he grew a very successful accounting business. But in that, he saw the mother of need, and from that, an opportunity to start a new business. So clearly he went and started software tech kind of business and began Level Copilot. So I liked that story as it showed that he's clearly in that entrepreneurial mindset of where there's an opportunity, he's going to seize it. So he went ahead, has those businesses running. But the thing that I thought was helpful is we had a conversation about staffing. He considered that to be one of the biggest takeaways as to hiring the right people, surrounding yourself with those key individuals that are essential for your success, realizing that a bad hire really can impact the culture of the environment and the workflow. So spending the time to do those, and one advice that he gave is to interview at least those 3 times to find that right person. It's recognizing that that is a critical part of the success that he's had. And so I thought that was a key takeaway from what we were discussing earlier. As it relates to software, we had a conversation about how to know when it's right to actually look at testing or trying a software, implementing it in the firm, considering your clients and the interactions they may have with it. I thought that was a good part of a conversation. And then we went from there to talk about where the future is going with this. And I appreciate the fact that he's optimistic about the future, the fact that even with the integrations of AI and so forth in these different platforms, we are going to get the tools we need to be still relevant for our clients. Those of us who choose to embrace these tools are obviously going to be the ones that stick around and most importantly, benefit from working more efficiently and productive. So the one thing I do want to point out, though, is he is grateful. He's grateful for his health. Obviously, he's dealing with a shoulder issue right now, but the important thing is he's optimistic about looking forward and keeping that positive mindset. So I really enjoyed our conversation. So Leeroy, what would you like to end with or leave as a parting thought?
Yeah, I just thank you so much, Roger, for having me here. I just really appreciate the conversation we had. As a final thought, I would urge bookkeeping firm owners who listen to this podcast to think about the opportunities where they could improve both from a hiring perspective as well as their margins, thinking about their clients. Be excited about the future. Everything's going to be all right. Just remember that in the back of your mind.
I like it. I like it. This too shall pass is a good thing to consider. Well, here's what I'd like to do. With that being said, I want to invite you to obviously still go and check out Level Copilot and take advantage of that 25% discount. It's in the episode description. But likewise, I want to invite you to go to universalaccounting.com and there find the highlights of the various podcasts that we've had over the years. We've got more than 300 episodes that we've recorded. We've compiled playlists based on various themes that you may find applicable to your current situation today, ranging from marketing, selling, tech stacks, training staff, onboarding clients. Go there, check out exactly what it is that you could find beneficial to your current situation and binge list that information. Also, what I'd like to do is encourage you to subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, each and every week, we release a new episode. It's where I invite those guests on to help us with various things that we can be doing in our business. Subscribe now, get those notifications, and listen. Join us each and every week for those different episodes. The other thing I want to invite you to do, as I mentioned earlier, GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of bookkeepers, accountants, tax preparers. It's owners of those firms. It's basically what we're doing is we're getting together to hear from the experts as well as meet our peers, those individuals with whom we can collaborate, make friendships with, learn from, be mentored by. There's phenomenal opportunities to find individuals who, like you, are building their premier bookkeeping, accounting, and tax business. So I invite you to join us. If you haven't already registered, go to universalaccounting.com, get your ticket today, and I look forward to seeing you there. As it relates to Universal Accounting, the sponsor of this show, if you'd like more information regarding the skills-based trainings, the various programs that we have for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses, trainings that we can offer to you and your training to help elevate their skills and abilities to offer these services, go to universalaccountingschool.com and there find information regarding these various programs and how we can assist you. Likewise, if you have questions regarding these topics and other conversations we've had, feel free to give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.